Hi, Tom from Solaray here. Welcome back to another video. So today I just wanted to go through some of the basics of solar. With so much news at the moment going around about how power prices are about to rise, possibly more than just once, and the short to medium term outlook doesn't look so great. We've even seen some newspaper articles talking about power cuts and more scary scenarios, which may or may not happen. And we're certainly not into the idea of scaring people into buying an expensive solar and battery system as an insurance policy. However, there is a lot of information out there at the moment around power prices rising. And I think it was Koshi that said in the news that maybe it's time to go solar. And so I think a lot of you are probably going to be searching the net for some kind of clear and honest information that's not too salesy. And so the aim of this video is just to give you the basics. And then if it's something that you want to look at further, then by all means you can book a call with us. So I'm just going to get the slides happening here. So here we go. Here's an example of this was in the Sydney Morning Herald by Elizabeth Knight, and it's saying how a perfect energy storm will inflict higher power bills on consumers. And it certainly seems like that's over the horizon with the wholesale prices going through the roof. And yeah, we've kind of seen that already happen in the UK and parts of Europe, and it looks like it's going to be happening here as well in Australia. And so um, higher power prices are on the way. Interestingly, in this article, you can see there in blue, it says there's a shortage of coal, which is quite interesting because when I talk to a lot of people about solar power, we're always saying how we're leading the world and Australia's got 3 million solar systems installed now and how great we're doing. But when we look at the grid, this is a screenshot I took today at 5:25 p.m. So it's cheating a little bit because at this time of year, by 5:30, the solar's kind of stopped working, which is, that is what it is. The sun's the sun's gone down, and so the grid is predominantly powered by coal, which is the black there, and in Victoria it's the brown coal, and gas, which is the red. It's great that we do have a bit of hydro happening, which is the blue there, especially in New South Wales. But for the most part, you can see it really is a grid powered by coal and gas. And this is such an important point because beyond just reducing your power bill with solar, what we're looking at is if you want to divest from coal and reduce your home's carbon footprint, um, the solution to that's not going to come from the grid just because so much money has been invested into the current grid that it's going to take an astronomical effort to kind of transition across to renewables at a grid level. And yeah, it is definitely happening. And I do find it interesting that up in the north of Australia, they're talking about these projects of mega solar farms to power Asia. And it's like, well, we could probably power quite a lot of Victoria and New South Wales as well before we worry about what's happening overseas. But nonetheless, the main point, in my opinion, is look, we don't want to be turning towards politicians um, because simply because it's going to take quite a long time to turn the grid away from coal and gas and more towards renewables. And it certainly is going to happen, but it's going to take a bit of time. And so what we really need to do is um, take the future into our own hands and one house at a time, 3 million so far and millions more to go, is we need to be looking at installing solar power so that immediately we're running on renewables for our family. Um, and so here's where we get into the basics of solar, which is solar panels on the roof, um, directly feeding sunlight, not heat, but light, into the home to be used during the daytime. And so, yeah, we'll start with the basics of how much electricity you can generate, which in Sydney is about 4 times the system size, and in Melbourne it's about 3.6. So using some rough numbers there, if you've got say like a 10 kilowatt system up on the roof, you're going to get about 40 kilowatt hours a day. But importantly, you're going to get a lot more electricity in summer compared to winter. And so you can see there, I've drawn a kind of a fairly faded gray line there, but hopefully you can see that. So that's the average. But what we're doing a lot of nowadays is sizing it up based on your 24-hour usage, um, so that you can either include a battery with the solar system or look to get one at some stage in the future. Um, Solar works really well with things that use a lot of electricity during the daytime and in summer, such as pool pumps and air conditioning. And with so many of us working from home, like I'm doing at the moment, um, yeah, solar can work really well with keeping the home office cool, and that type of thing. So I've just got a little example here of this was again taken today, so it's actually winter, and you can see, so the blue is the power produced from the solar system. So it really kicks into gear at about 8 o'clock in the morning and turns off at about 4. And the days are obviously a lot longer in the summer half of the year, so it will turn on earlier and stay on longer into the evening. I kind of took this as an example just to show to what extent a battery can benefit a lot of homes. So we've got a lot of customers that put in a big solar system, which is definitely the right thing to do. But you can see there with the consumption, if everyone's out of the home during the daytime, not that much electricity is being used, and the solar system's doing a really good job of producing a lot of power. And so that's the second step is if you don't use the power in the home as it's being generated, it gets sent off to the grid and you get paid a feed-in tariff for that. At the moment, it's about between 5 and 7 cents a kilowatt hour, which is obviously a lot less than what we're paying for our power at the moment, which I'll get into next. Um, and so here clearly illustrates the example of why you would consider a battery. Um, and yeah, at this stage, I just want to be really upfront as well, because I know it's annoying if you're watching a video and some of the figures get left out. So a battery, it costs around about 15 to 16,000 to buy a Tesla Powerwall fully installed with your solar system. And so for a lot of people, that will just immediately say, "Oh, okay, it's too much for now. Let's wait and see how we go." Um, but for a lot of other households, especially if you're close to retirement or you're spending a lot of um, time out of the home during the day, but still want the benefits of solar to use in the evening, well, then a battery is going to be a great solution. And if all of this kind of sounds interesting and you'd like to look at it a little bit more, we can talk to you about both options, solar with and without a battery. In about a 10-minute phone call, we can kind of give you all the information you need to make a good decision there. If you do get a battery, this is the Tesla app. It's called PowerFlow. So it kind of clearly illustrates the yellow at the top. There's 4 kilowatts of solar, first going into the home, secondly into the battery, and then third, actually in this case, the grid's disconnected because of a blackout. So you're completely self-sufficient with electricity. And again, we really don't want to be alarmist or anything like that. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. But a lot of people are looking at the risk of if power prices do go a bit crazy and there's some, you know, disruption to the grid for whatever reason, then having a battery means that you can run on your solar system day after day. And if your battery goes flat, it will actually recharge the following day from the solar system. So it's something that a lot of people are looking at, well, kind of irrespective of what's happening out there in the grid, but it's certainly with some of these bigger storms that we've seen over the last few years in the summer months, we've got, yeah, well over 50% of our solar systems now um, are including battery storage. So it's quite a significant number of people making the decision to get a battery. Um, cool. All right. So the next step is to kind of look at some numbers. This website, energymadeeasy.gov.au, it's actually a great initiative that the government's done, which is to put all of the electricity plans online so that you can kind of compare the market. And I've taken a screenshot from there just to kind of illustrate there's two very different ways that households get charged for their electricity. One is time of use, where you can see that you've got peak, off-peak, and shoulder. And that typically is in Ausgrid, which is the eastern half of Sydney up through the Central Coast into the Hunter. And if you've got a smart meter, you'll typically be on a time of use. It does get a bit confusing though, because in Endeavour, a lot of households have off-peak hot water or controlled load, it's sometimes called. And that's basically a very low price for the excess electricity that kind of gets fed into your home at nighttime. But that's very different to time of use billing. So a little tip is to have a look to see if you've got a shoulder. If you don't have shoulder, but you do have peak and off-peak, it probably means that you're paying a flat rate for your power across the whole day, and so it doesn't matter what time of day you're using electricity. And then the off-peak will be the controlled load. If you've got shoulder, then you've got time of use. Now, importantly here, what we're really worried about with um, increases in the pricing of electricity is this peak period between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. on weekdays. 42.57 cents there as an example is actually quite good. I regularly see customers send me a bill, and the peak will be over 50 cents a kilowatt hour. So if we have a 20% price increase coming up now and then another one in a few months, you might be looking at a peak cost of power, say in the 60s or even higher. I mean, imagine if you're paying 80 cents a kilowatt hour, as you come home from work all the way through to 8 p.m. And so our priority here when looking at sizing up a solar system for households is really going to be how can we help you make sure that you're using as much solar power as possible during this peak billing period. And of course, the shoulder being in the morning as well. So the average, if you take the average of the peak and the shoulder, at the moment, we're roughly saying that a cost of electricity during the daytime might be about 30 cents a kilowatt hour. But realistically, for many households, it's much higher than that. And so I might come back to this photo and I just want to go through some of the numbers here. And so if you have a look at a 6 kilowatt or 6.6 kilowatt system in Sydney outputting 4 times its size, so roughly 25 kilowatt hours a day, that's going to be about 9,400 kilowatt hours a year. And then so if you take the cost of electricity at being 30 cents per kilowatt hour, and the feed-in tariffs, they bounce around a lot, but at the moment they're about 5 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour. But they have been up over 20 cents, so they do vary, and that's why I kind of say don't worry too much about it. And the reason for that is at the bottom line here of where you actually save money on your power bill. It's by basically using electricity from the panels during the daytime, which will just reduce your bill, and you won't see that as a line item on your bill because you're not buying power anymore. You're just using solar power. So if your bill was say $800 and you use 70% of your solar power as it's being generated, well, then you can see here you're able to save about $2,000 on your bills um, as a direct reduction. And then the final 30% that you haven't used goes out to the grid, and you'll get a feed-in tariff for that, which might be about $50 a quarter. And so then you can see a total benefit of about $2,200 in round numbers, 500 or a bit more per quarter. So if you've got a bill of 500 to start with, of course, you're not going to save 500 because you're going to be using electricity at night. And that's where we've got two very different scenarios of if you want to have a battery or not, and that'll help us size up the system. What I'll do is I'll put a link down in the description below so you can, if you'd like to, you can read through a fairly detailed blog post of how you can size up a system. Otherwise, we can do it for you on a 10-minute phone call with more personalized numbers, which is obviously going to be a much faster way of kind of working out how much you can save in your home. So just to point on this image here, you can see there on the right, you've got 3 panels, which in Sydney or, Southern Hemisphere, but in our case, facing west, which is a really good thing to do, just keeping in mind if you've got time of use billing and you're paying so much for power right through to 8 p.m. So if you choose not to get a battery, what we can do is, if we can, and a lot of houses, especially the newer ones with the really big roofs, without too many details in them, just a nice big flat area where we can put panels. We'll often be able to put one string of panels north and one west. And that way, if I just go back a few slides to have a look at this output curve, what it'll actually do is push it further to the right. So you're going to generate more electricity later in the afternoon. And so that really helps with the time of use billing. Yeah, and so just back to this image here. Yeah, no, I guess the other main point I wanted to say with this image is as electricity gets more and more expensive, we're probably going to have to start managing how we use our electricity. And so if you can imagine if the price of power in, up until 8 p.m. 70, 80 cents a kilowatt hour, it's going to be quite stressful if you've got should we say, personalities in the home, or teenagers or that type of thing that are using a lot of electricity. And like we've seen in Europe, I'm not sure, well, from a personal standpoint, I know people who are now paying over 1,000 Australian dollars a month, let alone a quarter. And it's causing quite a lot of stress in terms of what you leave on and what force your your family members to turn off, whether it's underfloor heating or in our case in the summer it might be air conditioning. Um, so it's more of a personal thing, but it might end up causing a bit of stress in the household as power prices go up. And so with solar, it's it takes the stress out of it. It's much more fun to be managing your electricity, if you know that the end result's going to be free usage, free electricity basically from your panels. And so it's not going to be a hassle to kind of put the timer on the dishwasher and the washing machine and those types of things as you walk out the door and go to work, if you know that that's going to be saving you quite a lot of money on your power bill by being able to use free power from the sun. And it's a much better situation where you're kind of being proactive and using solar power rather than the stress of kind of arguing amongst the household. And yeah, from what I've heard from some of my family friends, it's not nice to have to kind of face the reality of having really extremely high power prices when you kind of need to have certain things on, such as heating or cooling, that use a lot of electricity. So that could, the summer rush and air conditioning and all of that's still a way off yet. We're just coming into winter, but it's a really good time of year to be organizing your solar. If we get one or even two price rises over the next few months, we're here at Solaray expecting to have a very busy peak period, basically from spring right through into summer. And so, if you're ready and it's something you've got the time to have a look at, now's a really good opportunity to get solar installed now, before the sun kind of comes back again and the days get a bit longer in the spring. And so if you'd like to have a call with the team, we do pride ourselves on giving you personalized advice without any of the sales pressure. And again, so those three main numbers that we like to give you, are the right size of system, maybe a couple options with and without a battery. The second number being how much it's going to cost to get it fully installed, and the third number being the potential savings that you can see on the power bill. So if that sounds like something that's of interest, I'll put a link in the description below so you can book a call with the team. We're happy to give you further advice based on personalized numbers, and we do love it if you have a power bill handy. Or if you click on that link, you can actually upload a power bill if you think that's easier, or of course, just take a screenshot, or take a photo, sorry, and send that through so we can have a look and see how much you're paying for your power and that type of thing, and then we can give you the right advice. So hopefully that's a start. Links down below for more information, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye for now.